But first, the war in the Middle East should be a wake-up call for Australia. There's a famous political line, never let a good crisis go to waste. The idea is simple. Moments of fear and uncertainty often create opportunities for governments to push through policies that might otherwise face resistance. And this week, it feels like we may be watching that principle play out in real time. Because moments like this force countries to confront a simple question: how prepared are we if global supply chains break down? Australia is one of the most resource-rich countries in the world, yet when it comes to fuel security, we are extremely exposed. Australia once had a strong domestic refining industry. At the start of the century, we were nearly self-sufficient when it came to petrol and diesel. At one point, Australia had 12 oil refineries. As recently as 2010, there were still 7 operating, but a wave of closures. Clyde in 2012, Kurnell in 2014, Bulwer Island in 2015 dramatically reduced that capacity. Then in 2021, BP's Kwinana refinery south of Perth and the Altona facility in Melbourne closed. Both of those facilities were converted into fuel import terminals. The irony is obvious. Places that once produced Australia's fuel now exist to receive it from overseas. At the same time, Australia's own crude oil production has declined, and much of what we do produce is exported to Asian refineries. Today, Australia's remaining refineries.
Good day and welcome back to Australia's TakeOver, the channel that has been watching Chris Bowen's energy experiment unfold in real time. And today we are here to present the full picture. The promise, the reality, the irony, and the bill, which, as it turns out, is considerably higher than advertised. If you are new here, subscribe right now and hit the notification bell, because what we're about to lay out is one of the most spectacular gaps between what a government promised and what Australians actually received. Right, let us start with the promise, because there was a promise, a very specific, very repeated, very memorable promise. Before the 2022 election, the Albanese government, with Chris Bowen front and centre, told Australians that their plan would cut their average power bill by $275 by Christmas 2023. Not a vague aspiration, not a rough ballpark, $275. And they said it not once, not twice, but 97 times before polling day. 97 times. That is not a policy position. That is a catchphrase. That is a jingle. That is the kind of repetition that should come with royalties. So, how did the $275 promise land? Electricity costs rose 32.2% in the 12 months to January 2026, not down $275, up 32%. The average Australian household is now paying approximately $1,300 more per year on their power bills than when this government took office. You were promised a discount of $275 and you received a penalty of $1,300. That is not a broken promise. That is a broken promise doing donuts in your driveway. And here's the part that requires a genuine pause to appreciate the full absurdity. The government's response to the power bill blowout: temporary energy bill rebates funded by borrowed money. The government is literally going into debt to pay your electricity bill because the electricity bill got too expensive as a direct result of the government's own energy policy. They broke the thing, then they borrowed money to give you a discount on the broken thing, then they said the broken thing is actually working. That is not an energy transition. That is a shell game with a very large invoice. Now, enter the irony factory, because at the exact same moment that Australians are opening their power bills and choking, Chris Bowen is presiding over the worst liquid fuel security crisis in Australia's recent history. A war has broken out in the Middle East. The world's key oil shipping lane is compromised. Australia has 32 days of diesel. And the Minister for Energy, the man whose entire brand is built on clean, cheap, secure energy, is holding daily press conferences telling Australians there is no crisis. Daily briefings on fuel reserves. That is what Bowen directed his department to provide him in the middle of this crisis, instead of the usual quarterly updates. Read that again slowly. He went from quarterly check-ins on Australia's fuel security to daily emergency briefings. That is not the behavior of a minister overseeing a stable system. That is the behavior of a minister watching a gauge drop and hoping it stops before anyone notices. And what is the government's flagship response to the liquid fuel crisis? Lowering fuel quality standards, releasing reserves, and asking Australians to buy only what they need. These are emergency measures. These are the tools you reach for when the plan has failed, and they are being deployed by the same minister who has spent 4 years telling the nation the plan is working. Here's the full picture of Chris Bowen's energy legacy as it stands right now. Power bills up 32%. The $275 promise broken 97 times over. 336,000 Australian households in energy debt, meaning they literally cannot pay their electricity bills. The Cheaper Home Batteries program ballooning from $2.3 billion to more than $7 billion in cost, and simultaneously a liquid fuel crisis that experts had been warning about since 2019, sitting completely unaddressed on Bowen's desk through 4 years in office. The government will point to the renewable transition, and to be fair, the numbers there are real. 50% renewable electricity generation in the grid in the final quarter of 2025 is genuinely significant. 19 gigawatts of new renewable generation installed since 2022 is not nothing. The direction is correct. The ambition is legitimate. But here's the thing about ambition. It has to actually deliver for the people paying for it. And right now, the people of Burleigh Heads, Currumbin and towns across regional Australia are paying more for their electricity, lining up at servo bowsers for rationed diesel and watching a minister take victory laps on renewable percentages while their bills go through the roof. You cannot be the renewables minister and the energy security minister and the cost of living minister and fail simultaneously on all 3 fronts and then ask Australians to trust you because the grid hit 50% solar on a sunny Tuesday in December. That is not accountability. That is a highlight reel, and Australians deserve the full picture. The full picture is this. The promise was $275 cheaper. The reality is $1,300 more expensive. The fuel reserves are critically low. The plan is being paid for with borrowed money, and the minister responsible is holding daily emergency briefings while insisting there is no emergency. Chris Bowen is not just the architect of Australia's renewables future. He is the minister presiding over an energy system that is simultaneously too expensive, not secure enough, and running on borrowed time in every sense of the phrase. Thanks so much for watching. Australia's TakeOver appreciates every one of you.